Today's episode of the Our Hen House podcast is being sponsored by our partner, A Well-Fed World. A Well-Fed World is a hunger relief and animal protection organization chipping away at two of the world's most immense, unnecessary, and unconscionable forms of suffering. The suffering of people hungry from lack of food, and the suffering of animals used and abused for food. Mending our unjust food system is a critical part of solving the world's most destructive and persistent problems. Fortunately, the plant-based foods that promote health and well-being are the same foods that conserve resources to better feed the world, while reducing greenhouse gas emissions and protecting the environment. A well-fed world provides the means for change by empowering individuals, social justice organizations, and political decision-makers to embrace the benefits of plant-based foods and farming. Learn more at awfw.org.
Our hen house is a squawking house. Our hen house is their hen house. Our hen house, ooh, it's a funky fresh house. Our hen house is your hen house.
Welcome to Our Hen House. This is Mariann Sullivan. Thanks so much for joining us this week. I think you're going to be glad you did because we have a really great show for you. My guest is Eddie Garza, and I was lucky enough to catch up with Eddie in person when he was in New York City recently, and he's been doing really amazing work. He works for the Humane Society of the United States doing outreach to the Latino community, and by Latino community, you're going to be impressed with the number of people he's reaching. And so I think you're going to love hearing about this work, and particularly to the enthusiasm which his work is being greeted with. It's really pretty inspiring. He also has a new cookbook out, and it's on vegan Mexican food, and it sounds amazing, and I'm sure a lot of you are going to want to try it. And then Jasmine will be joined by Katie Cantrell. Katie is the founder and executive director of the Factory Farming Awareness Coalition, and if you're not familiar with their work, you really need to be. They're doing amazing work in educating people. You know, it's so easy for us all to forget that not everybody knows as much as we do about the horrors of factory farming. Not only the horrors for the animals, but the horrors for the environment and all of the social justice hazards. And anyway, the Factory Farming Awareness Coalition is really getting out there and teaching people what's going on. So you're going to be excited to hear that interview. Before we get to those interviews, I do want to take a moment to address a quandary that I received from a listener. Her name is Claire, and I think it involves an issue that comes up for so many of us trying to figure out how to be effective activists. And I should warn you that this is not going to end with me having an answer. I mean, I always talk about things, but it's not like I have an answer to all of them. I'm not sure all of them have cut and dried answers. And the fact is that we all choose different ways to deal with things, and I'm not sure that's a bad thing. But I think the really important thing is to keep talking about them, because every time we do, I think we gain some insights into how to refine what we're doing and how we're reaching people. Anyway, this is what Claire said. For the holidays, I sent my immediate family an email about the animal liberation pledge I made to not eat at a table centered around an animal carcass. This, of course, made everyone upset with me, saying that I'm being selfish and leaving no room for compromise. One suggestion was made that what if we serve the turkey, pig, roast, etc. in the kitchen where it is not on the table? I have mixed feelings about this. Even though it takes the focus off of the dead animal, it also sweeps the atrocity under the rug, covering up the violence much like the industry does. Although my partner understands and supports my decision, I really want my family to understand my viewpoint, and they can't see past their own defensiveness. I could really use some advice on this dilemma. You know, as I said, this is something that we all deal with all the time. And she has actually already taken a much stronger stance than I do when I eat with my extended family. And they are all very nice people, my family. I'm very lucky in that. And they are kind enough they never make the dead animal the centerpiece. It's all kind of subtle off to the side. We all just ignore the reality of what they are eating and how I feel about it. We just go our merry ways. And I know a lot of people might say that it's much better to not make big waves, to appear sensible and compromising. I'm not sure I do it because I think it's better. It's just how I deal with things. But as a general rule, I guess I feel that way. I recognize that most people don't see animals the way I do, and by being gentle with them, while still never hiding what I believe. I mean, they all know how I feel, and I think maybe they'd be more likely to listen to me. However, I am totally uncertain of that, and it's not like they've all gone vegan over the years. So what do I know? So at the same time, I really sympathize with Claire's feelings, disturbed feelings, as she said, by sweeping the atrocity under the rug. That is what we're doing when we're ignoring animal carcasses and animal parts going into people's mouths. So, and even though the people around us and our family, they may verbalize that they dislike our harsh stand, as Claire's family apparently does to some extent, and they just don't like us for doing that, and they're annoyed by us. There's still a possibility that I think taking a strong stand may annoy them, but actually will get in deeper and make them think and have an impact on them. And that on the other side of their annoyance, or even sometimes their anger, there's the possibility of them seeing, because for the very reason that we have taken a strong stand, the outrage that they are committing. So I don't know. I mean, think about what if the animals that we're defending, what if they were children? We certainly wouldn't hesitate to take a very, very strong stand. I mean, who knows what we would do? But are they less important than children? So regardless of what the attitude is of the person who's committing the violence, and we know our family members do not think they're doing anything wrong. If it were children, we wouldn't hesitate to fight back with everything we had. Why are we doing something different? Because they're animals. By failing to do something different, are we somehow condoning this violence? These are questions, I think, that go through all of our heads. And it's very troubling. And I don't think there's an answer here. I'm not one of these people who says, no, we have to take the effective, practical, nice way that'll reach more people, or one of these people who say, no, you have to take an absolute stand. I don't know. I just don't know. The effective altruism movement, of course, is at least purporting to do the research on what's more effective, but it's really in that research is in its at best nascent stage. They don't know, and I'm not sure it'll ever really prove to anyone what the best method of changing the most hearts and minds is. I don't know whether that's going to be provable, and I don't know whether, well, even if it is provable, whether we'll ever have the money to do the kind of research that would show that. And anyway, different people are going to respond to different messages. So I'm not sure there is just one way, and it's very hard to measure. So I guess the bottom line here is I think that for the moment, we have to go with our gut. What feels right to us, what feels honest, and what feels good, and what feels effective. But that's the issue, I think. That's the really important issue. When we're deciding what our gut is telling us, the question we need to ask is not what makes us feel good, not what gives us the most satisfaction, not what is based on ego or our anger that people aren't listening to us. We have to go with our gut, it's true. But what we really have to ask our gut is, what should we do to have an impact on this particular person? We have to ask that question honestly. So I guess it has, my advice, to the extent I'm giving advice, has more to do with the question we're asking ourselves when we decide what action to pursue, rather than what the answer is, because I think we're going to have different answers to that question. Anyway, the other advice I would give here is just don't sweat it. We all tend to focus our efforts on the people we know and love. We all want to convince our family. We all want our family to think we're right. We all love our family. Well, we don't love our families, but to the extent we do, we hate to see them doing something that feels so terribly wrong to us. But families are frequently, as we've said many times, the very hardest people to reach. You're working against all sorts of family dynamics that have grown up for years, and chances are they're not working in your favor to encourage your family to listen to everything you say. Chances are, with family dynamics, that there's a lot more complicated stuff going on than that. So whatever you decide to do in any one particular moment or any particular situation, It's just not that important. I mean, it would be nice for us to convince our families, but the animals, it doesn't matter to the animals who they're being slaughtered for and eaten by. They don't want to be slaughtered for and eaten by anybody, not just our family. So if your dinner with family causes you pain, just try to dissolve that pain with activism. Try to reach others, go leaflet, get vegan options in your cafeteria, the million trillion things we can all do to work towards reducing and ultimately eliminating the slaughter of animals for food. And while your family may not be fertile ground for that kind of change, there is a lot of fertile ground out there. Go find it. Plant some vegan seed. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Vegan seed, perfect segue to our first guest, who really is devoting himself to planting vegan seeds. This is gonna blow you away. He has apparently found incredibly fertile ground to plant those seeds in. Vegan chef Eddie Garza is his name. Well, his name is Eddie Garza, not vegan chef Eddie Garza. He is a speaker, food coach, Latino health thought leader, and senior manager of food and nutrition for the Humane Society of the United States. He's just released his latest cookbook, Salud, Vegan Mexican Cookbook, which is designed to help you, quote, recreate your favorite Mexican foods entirely vegan, unquote. He can be found on Facebook or on Twitter at The Eddie Garza, and he'll be joining us right after this.
We have a really beautiful dedication today. In celebration of their 5-year vegan-versary, Sam would like to dedicate this podcast episode to the most active activist he knows, his brother Ryan Phillips. Every day he can be found holding signs on the streets of Williamsburg in any weather, recently surpassing 100 consecutive days. While at the grocery store, he's known to inform people about the truth of the animal products in their carts and offers coupons or actually purchases a vegan alternative for them. He also puts out new content every day in the form of videos, art, t-shirts, cute pictures of his recently adopted pigs, music, and a soon-to-be-published children's book. You can follow his work on Facebook under Art from a Vegan Heart, and if you're not easily offended, you can watch his animated video series, The Carnies, which is best described as South Park humor with a vegan message. So he says, "Thanks, brother, for all you do for the animals." So that's awesome, Sam. I love your dedication to Ryan, and that is a super cool story. Ryan, you sound like an amazing activist, and I'm so grateful for all you're doing to change the world for animals. Congrats on your 5-year vegan-versary.
Welcome to our hen house, Eddie.
Thank you so much, Mariann. Amazing to see you again after so much time. Oh my gosh, it's been what, 3 years?
At least 3 years, and you are here with me. We're not recording this over Skype or anything, and it really is such a pleasure to see you. And you have been doing completely amazing work since the last time I saw you. And I keep seeing you on Facebook, on TV, which is kind of startling to always see your old friend on Facebook, on TV. So tell me what that's all about.
Gosh, yeah. I've been doing a lot of TV spots, particularly Spanish-speaking TV spots in Miami, did some here in New York. We'll be doing more here in New York, but kind of all over the country working on promoting plant-based eating to the Latin community, which is a project that I've been working on with the HSUS, and I'm really excited to have that opportunity to go spread the power of plants to my people.
And you are really spreading it, and the opportunities I know are extraordinary, and I'm really shocked at how much progress you have made in a short period of time. Before we talk about the big picture, tell us about those TV spots, though. I assume most of the TV hosts are not vegan. Maybe some of them don't even really know what it is or aren't familiar with it. You see that all the time. So what is it like? What kind of reception are you getting?
You know, that's a really good question. Something I always talk about is that even for the past year, I've been doing regular TV spots, and 0 times have I gotten pushback the way I do in other media that I've done in English language. Largely, it's because people in the Latin community are very fully aware of the problems that we have, both physically, we've got some of the largest obesity rates in the country. And also, people in the Latin community are largely concerned about the environment, things that, natural disasters really affect our areas more than most other people. So, one of the things that we talk about is one of the best ways to help improve the planet is to eat more plant-based foods. And it's also a great way to help, improve your health. So the people in the media that I work with, they're always very excited to have me on. They're always excited to find a way to help the community. And that's something that I find that's really different between Latin community, or rather Latin media versus traditional American media. So the pushback is the pushback I've had has often been the English language media, whereas in Spanish, it's often seen like I'm really there to help the community, and I love that. So I've had multiple spots. I've done some of the largest TV shows on Telemundo National, reaching over 1 million people, on Univision's national shows, which reach over 2 million people. And these numbers are just the beginning. I think I was mentioning, I did a TV interview last week in Miami, and then this morning I turned on the television here in New York and saw that, oh, this is a national station. I had no idea. So I'm reaching so many people, both nationally and internationally, just by, having something unique to bring to the table.
It really is crazy that the number of people you're reaching and how receptive people are to this message. What about the Latin community in general? Are you bringing the word to them about veganism? Do they know about it? Or is this really brand new news? And are they unfamiliar, to a large extent, with how damaging a meat-centric diet is?
That's a great question. I am taking the message to the Latin community in different ways than just the media. So I've been doing a lot of work with food service institutions in Mexico, teaching them how to make very affordable, very easy to make Mexican versions of, or rather plant-based versions of traditional Mexican foods. I've been working with one company that is one of the largest companies in Mexico called Urist, and they operate hundreds of dining halls throughout the country and also Colombia. And what I find really exciting is that they truly are like things that are very basic to us, like tapioca, making some cheese stretchy, making a vegan cheese, using eggplants to make a shredded meat substitute. Things like that are very basic to us are still so brand new to them. And it's exciting to see them get excited about these. Because in some ways, there are people who are promoting things like, eating healthier and eating plant-based in Mexico, but it's often very expensive superfoods. So I like to focus on things that are affordable, things that are in people's pantries, things that they can get from the food bank, and using your spices at home. How can you make this a traditional meal that harms no animals?
Yeah, that is so empowering and so exciting to hear, because really, talk a little bit about traditional cuisine. In Mexico, though, I know that there are many different cuisines in the Latino community, many, many different cuisines. But let's focus on Mexico specifically. And I'm not sure it's that different from other cuisines, because a lot of them are extremely meat-centric. But that's not really traditional Mexican food, is it?
Right. So traditional Mexican food before Columbus, we'll call it pre-Columbian times, before the Europeans.
Before it all happened.
Before it all happened, right? So before...
Back in the good old days.
So before it all happened, yeah, the majority of food in Mexico and all Latin America was largely plant-based. There were a lot of squashes that were used, a lot of beans, black bean, which is actually the very first bean to be cultivated, is a Mexican native. But the focus was really on vegetables. In fact, the Maya people had really sophisticated agriculture systems to grow food, to grow fruits and vegetables and grains and corn. And it was really after the Europeans came into Mexico and Latin America that they brought their meat that was, cultivated because that was the way it was done in Europe. The Belgian people brought dairy to Mexico. There were people, other Europeans brought different types of pork. They brought beef. They brought chicken. But it was really like, if we look at the oldest foods in Mexico, plant-based foods. Tamales never had pork before the Europeans came. Tortillas, still very much a staple in Mexico. In fact, in central Mexico, where you still find street foods that are naturally vegan, there's a thing called tlacoyo. It's Tlacoyo. And that is one of my favorite. I like to call that the original Hot Pocket. It's a blue corn masa that's like a torpedo shaped. It's filled with black beans. It's delicious. And it's completely plant-based. You find them at street corners all over Mexico.
I want one right now.
Did
you bring one?
I'm happy to make you one. That's the wonderful thing, that all the traditional Mexican foods are so easy to make. People have just forgotten how to make them. So that is one of the things that I really like doing, is showing people like, hey, there's this really awesome old food that everybody loves. It's like Mexico City's Taco Bell. It's open all night. After the bar, you go and you get a tlacoyo, or you get a quesadilla that doesn't necessarily have to have cheese. But there's so much incredible vegan food that's just naturally vegan in Mexico, and I'm so happy to share this with the entire world.
Yeah, I love that story, and I love cuisines that are like that, and a lot of non-European cuisines in particular are like that. That the real traditions, people talk about holding on to their traditional foods, of their tacos and their quesadillas and whatever. Those are not the real traditions.
No, not at all. In fact, I recently hosted an event in Laredo, Texas, which is it's a South Texas city that has 98.9% Hispanic population, a large school district, and a lot of the students there are really into this plant-based meal program that we started there called Lean and Green Days. In fact, we recently hosted a Top Chef vegan event where the students at different high schools, culinary students, were tasked to create plant-based versions of traditional Mexican foods. And the kids learned things like the fact that fajitas, which a lot of people consider a traditional Mexican food, is actually a very Tex-Mex food. It was just food that was created in the United States, and it was the cuts of meat that the ranchers didn't want, so they gave that as payment. So it's essentially pauper's food more than anything else.
Colonial food.
It's totally colonial, but it's also, like I said, the scraps that nobody else wants. It was the people who were workers, day laborers, who just got paid in the scrap meat, and they created something called fajitas out of it. So the kids were so excited to learn that, our traditional foods are really amazing. And there was a news story that was done, and one of the culinary students who won the competition said she was mixing vegan and Mexican and to create this amazing dish. And she was so proud of her dish, and I was just so proud watching it, because they recognized it's all the same flavors, but we're using it on tofu instead of chicken, which was something the Lebanese brought to, tacos al pastor, was something that was a Lebanese food that was brought to Mexico, and she made.
That's so cool.
It was cool.
So it's not exactly a traditional food, but it's not a brand new ingredient for Mexican food. Tofu.
No, I
never knew that.
Yeah, so you can find tofu everywhere. You find tofu in some of the just standard markets in Mexico. You find it at Walmart, you find it at Superama or Soriana, any of those major stores. They all have tofu, and everybody has chilies. So that's the way you spice these foods.
What more do you want? Tofu chilies. I'm in.
There you go.
Now, you actually, this is an issue you're personally very familiar with, because you grew up in Brownsville, Texas, and which is, of course, has a large Latino population. And tell us about your history with food and what kind of foods you grew up on.
So I grew up on a lot of traditional Mexican foods. I spent a lot of time in the kitchen with my grandmother when I was growing up. I'm not really sure why. I just always loved hanging out with Grandma. She was so much fun.
I can't see any reason why not.
Right.
We all love maybe we don't all love our grandmas, but an awful lot of us do.
Yeah, no, that's true. I was really lucky that my grandmother was such a loving person. I used to just hang out with her and try to learn everything she knew about the kitchen. So I'd been cooking with her since I can remember. I was a child wrapping tamales around this time of year to deliver them for Christmas presents to all of our family. And it was awesome. It was an awesome life, having to spend so much time with my grandmother and, learning to appreciate my culture in ways that I wasn't shunning the European side of my family. My dad's side is very largely European. I recently found out that we are Sephardic Jews who migrated to Mexico in the 1500s.
No shit!
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's amazing. And also, my mother's side of the family, very, very heavy Aztec side. So my grandmother always wanted us to embrace everything that was, everything we were. So a lot of the recipes we made, she would tell me about how this is an old recipe that the Aztec people used to make. This is a recipe that the Belgian people used to make. So one of my favorite dishes was enchiladas suizas, which is Swiss chicken enchiladas. And it was amazing how I just learned so much about, it's not actually like an enchilada that they make in Switzerland. This is actually enchiladas that the Swiss people brought to Mexico. And it was awesome to have all that inspiration to just embrace who you are.
But there was a lot of, say, not very healthy food in your past as well, right?
Well, sure. I don't know if I've ever said this publicly to you all. Maybe I did. Yeah, I mean, like so many people in my part of the country where there's high obesity, I was a very obese person. I weighed 310 pounds at my heaviest weight. But I loved food, and I still do. And that's the real beauty that I'd like to tell people in our part of the country. I don't know why people eat as much as they do. There are lots of different reasons culturally why they do. It could be that they felt they needed to continue eating, so they didn't, they didn't see themselves as like starving. And there was definitely that issue that has come up in different parts of the country, like in Florida. That's a big Cuban problem, or so I see in the Cuban community. But yeah, I was like so many other Chicanos. I was very obese, and I, obviously made a lot of different dietary choices. And one of the great benefits to eating a plant-based diet is that, if you eat a healthy plant-based diet, and a lot of the traditional Mexican foods are very healthy naturally, you can lose a lot of weight. I lost 150 pounds, which is why I said, I recently wrote a book that is 150 Mexican recipes that represent the 150 pounds that I lost by switching over to a healthy plant-based diet, largely Mexican.
I definitely want to talk about your book in a moment, and I had no idea that was the origin of the title, but that's a very moving story, and I'm sure it really helps you connect with people who are struggling with food, and really missing the point that I just wanted to get back to this because you said that the focus in Mexico, to some extent, at least in the media, is turning towards superfoods. These traditional foods, they're cheap. Like beans may be cheap, but they're a superfood.
They absolutely are a superfood. Beans, grains, these are powerhouses that we all have. Amaranth is a native of
love
Mexico.
amaranth.
It's amazing. And, it's really cool to go back and look at the history of amaranth in Mexico. Amaranth being a superfood that was banned by the Spaniards during, during the Spanish Inquisition, they came to Mexico and they got rid of certain practices, such as the cultivation of amaranth was banned because it was used in Aztec culture for rituals. So to think about that, like it was banned, it was illegal
Horrifying.
To grow amaranth, a superfood. So that's one of the reasons that there has been such a big focus on bringing back some of these traditional staples into Mexico. There's a large movement right now focusing on some of the ancient foods as a way to combat the problems that the country's facing.
Yeah, I think that's very exciting. It reminds me also of the quinoa story, which is also not Mexican, but also a Latino food that had kind of I never heard of quinoa when I was a kid. Now it's everywhere.
Now it's everywhere, and it's amazing.
Has your work been mostly with Mexico and Mexican Americans, or are you reaching out to other parts? I mean, Latino culture obviously is incredibly diverse. So are you covering the whole world?
Yeah, I feel like I'm covering quite a bit. Now, the reason I focus on Mexican food is because, well, everybody loves Mexican food, but also about 80% of Latinos in the United States are Mexican descent.
Oh, I didn't really know it was that high. I guess because I live in New York, so we have a lot of people from the islands here.
Right. But I also do focus on all Latin cuisine. Some of the foods that I make, arroz con gandules, which is an incredible dish that a lot of people eat, Dominican dish. It's also Puerto Rican. But whenever I do work in Florida, I'd like to kind of figure out who's watching, what are they wanting to eat. So depending on what demographic I'm reaching out to, I'll make some cuisine on TV that is going to be a plant-based version of something that they know that's familiar. So one of the dishes that I recently did here in Mexico, rather, I say here in Mexico, here in New York, was this dish that I made at V-Spot restaurant for Telemundo. And it's called bandeja paisa. It's actually something that was Danny Carabano's recipe. He's amazing. V-Spot is amazing. So Can I do a shout out for V-Spot?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll shout it out myself. V-Spot.
V-Spot. Yeah.
I love V-Spot. I love Danny Carabano, and I love that dish, which I'm not going to try to pronounce. But I've only had his version. I haven't had yours.
Well, his version is essentially the version that I would make also. It's seitan meat. He uses some soy meats. But it's absolutely incredible. And every time I say that there's a vegan version of anything, I just mentioned it the other day on Telemundo. I was here doing an interview, and I said, hey, we got to cover this restaurant because they're doing bandeja paisa. And he said, no way, vegan? I was like, yeah, totally vegan bandeja paisa. And he was totally floored. I said, everything up to the little egg. It's like a tofu egg. He's like, we have to do this. We have to cover it. So we're going to be coming over, Danny, to cover your bandeja paisa.
That is so exciting. Really exciting. I understand you're also planning on doing work in Miami?
Yeah. So I'm planning on moving to Miami because there's just so much work to be done out there. I've been doing a lot of cooking demonstrations for TV shows that have international reach, national reach, just kind of everywhere, and also some local stuff. But I mean, I can do 3 interviews a day and it just never gets old. They're just like, it's the land of opportunity if you want to go and promote plant-based eating or anything to the Latin community. You can reach everybody by being in Miami. So for me, I see it as a win-win for animals, for the environment, and for the health of Latinos all over. One TV show that I've done like now 3 interviews with, it's like the largest Venezuelan program. And like to think about, I'm reaching people all the way in Venezuela just by walking down the street.
So the largest Venezuelan TV station is in Miami?
Every single Spanish language TV show is headquartered or has an office in Miami to be able to reach everybody. So I recently did an interview with CNN en Español, which was just down the street from my hotel. Like I said, there are just endless opportunities in Miami. I can't not be there.
This is so exciting, especially since, as you said, there just seems to be far more receptivity to this message. And is that just in Mexico or is that across the board?
I feel like it's across the board. Something just I wanted to share this. This was really exciting. Something that I'm finding a lot of is there are people who've been following me on Instagram and on Twitter and have been retweeting and regramming, and I look at them like, oh my gosh, who is this person? So many people in the Latin community are already vegan or vegetarian or eating a lot this way and are promoting my stuff without me even knowing who they are, until I go and find out, oh wow, they just tweeted something to 1.5 million people.
Oh my God.
It's incredible. So I feel like it's growing everywhere. A lot of these people are Venezuelan. I see some Colombian people who are doing this. A lot of Mexican actors and actresses who have some major roles on some major TV shows are actively promoting, the stuff that I'm selling. It's incredible. It's incredible to see so much need for this in the community.
Yeah. What about, you'll be in Miami. Obviously, from what you've said, that reaches far beyond the Miami community. But the Miami community, I would assume, is largely from the islands, from the Caribbean. And I know that the neighborhood I live in is a very Dominican neighborhood and has lots of Dominican restaurants, none of which have anything I can eat. So there's a lot of work to be done there. And are you looking forward to working with, I assume that there are many different cuisines because each island sort of has its own cuisine. And I will note that, I think I might have said this before because I keep talking about it and people who aren't in New York are probably getting sick of hearing about it, but this great bar opened up, Poción, just within walking distance of where I live, and it's mostly cocktails, but it has lots of small plates. You can definitely do a meal there. It's totally vegan. I couldn't be more excited. Do you see that happening in island cuisine?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to try this place. I'm so excited to try this place, and I am excited about the way that things are changing. Even in Miami, the scene has changed so much from the first time I went there, and it was not very vegan friendly at all, to now, Matthew Kinney has a restaurant there. But also, I was at a restaurant, just a regular Spanish tapas bar the other day, and there was a vegan menu.
Wow.
I said, oh my gosh, there's like a vegan menu at this Spanish tapas bar in Miami. It's completely changing. And of course, in Miami, there's also a restaurant called Choices Cafe it's one of my favorites, Alex Cuevas, who is actually a New Yorker, and he just happens to live in Miami. And he moved to Miami because he saw that there was a need for more vegan food in Miami. So now he's got 3 or 4 locations. And I think it was that restaurant that really started making some big changes in Miami. It's kind of like the Spiral Diner in Dallas or in Dallas-Fort Worth that kind of started the vegan movement in Texas, and now it's huge in Texas. We have a Mexican restaurant in Texas called El Palote, and it's incredible. They do northern Mexican style tacos and tamales, completely vegan. Incredible. It's like absolutely incredible. But all this started because of one restaurant, Spiral Diner, and I believe that that's what Choices did for Miami.
Kind of a cool name, isn't it? Spiral, because it started a movement that really spiraled. And I think I really appreciate your point that the tapas bar that you went into had a vegan menu, because I think that's also what happens, and it's not as visible to us always, that it's not just that vegan restaurants are opening, it's that non-vegan restaurants are having those vegan options, and we are seeing that more and more. I'm excited to hear it's going on in Miami. But before, we've talked long enough about all of these other things. Let's talk about your book, because it's pretty damn exciting. It just came out, like really just came out, and I just got a copy of it, which I'm so grateful for. Tell us what inspired you to write the book, and tell us a little bit about it.
Thank you. Yeah. So the book is a labor of love. I wrote it for my grandmother, who is thankfully still with us, and I wanted to dedicate the book to her because she's such an incredible person. I love her so much.
Eddie, you're tearing up.
Yeah, I mean, she taught me.
Your dedication to her, which I read as soon as I opened the book, kind of made me tear up. I mean, we grandmas have very special places in our lives.
Yeah, she's just such a wonderful person who really taught me to be everything I could be and do everything I could do, and inspired me to be a better person and do better for everyone. So I dedicated this book to her and wanted to share the recipes that she passed down to me. A lot of recipes from, a lot of traditional Mexican recipes. It's from a grandmother who says, a little more of this, a little more of that. And I wanted to put all that down on paper and say, it's a little more of this, but it's actually an eighth of a teaspoon of this. One of the recipes that I have in there that I'm really proud of, and that she's really proud of, is my garbanzo rizo, which is a traditional Mexican chorizo, but with garbanzo beans. So it's all the same spices.
I want that too.
It's incredible. It's all the same spices that you would put in a pork chorizo that she would make, but I've used garbanzo beans, and it's essentially the same flavor, but less than half the fat, and it goes with so many different things. I use it for a dish called mollete, which is kind of the Mexican beans and toast, and you top it with a little bit of the garbanzo rizo. And I also use it whenever I'm having pizza night. It's a great pizza topper. But it's exciting to be able to share the recipes here, because the whole idea is, yes, before Spaniards or before Europeans came to Mexico, it was largely plant-based. But recognizing that people like traditional and they also like modern Mexican flavors, hey, we can still have all the amazing modern flavors that we love, all in a plant-based way. So I've got things from, traditional tamales to tlacoyo, which is going to be an exciting new dish that a lot of people here in the United States don't know, to other more familiar favorites like the enchiladas suizas, which are not actually the enchiladas you eat in Switzerland, but the kind that the Swiss people brought to Mexico in a plant-based way. I've got stuff like queso cotija, which is like a Parmesan cheese you can make in. I think in the book I say it takes 2 minutes, but honestly it takes like 45 seconds to make this cheese, and it's an amazing alternative to Parmesan cheese. I've got a queso fundido, which is a really stretchy cheese made with cashew cheese, rather cashews and tapioca. You cook it up, add some garbanzo chorizo on it, and you've got an amazing northern Mexican dish. I've got barbacoa tacos with shredded eggplant and simmered in some chiles and other spices, and it's got the same texture that you would get barbacoa at like a Chipotle, but it's completely plant-based, super healthy. There's so much in there. There's so much. One of the things that you'll notice in the book is that you're not going to see a lot of prepackaged things. The only thing that I use that's prepackaged quite often are TVP crumbles, and that's because in Mexican markets, you buy that stuff in bulk right by the beans. It's so cheap, so easy to do.
It sounds completely amazing. And the name of the book is Salud, and Salud Vegan Mexican. And even I know that salud means health. I don't know a lot, but I do know that. So how do you strike that balance? I mean, aside from the fact that plant-based is just by nature healthier than meat centric. How do you strike that balance between keeping it healthy, which is obviously a big motivator for the people you're working with, who are having a lot of those health problems, but also keep it, as you said, people don't just want to go back to Aztec times and eat beans. I mean, they want modern flavors as well. So where do you draw that line?
Yeah, so the name of the book, Salud, is because it does mean health, but it also means cheers. So it should be celebratory. And not every recipe in the book is going to be 100% healthy. I mean, how can you have a chocolate cake that is great for you? You can't eat the whole chocolate cake. But the whole idea is that we can all eat better. And the majority of the recipes in there are going to be super healthy, but super flavorful. So you're not going to feel like you're giving anything up. I didn't want this book to feel like, oh, you're giving up something that you love. Absolutely not. This book is all about embracing an idea that you can improve your health, you can improve the health of the planet, and you can help animals, and you can still enjoy all the amazing Mexican flavors that you know and love. I mean, things like you can swap out animal products for something that's going to be so much better for you and for the environment and for your pocketbook, and things that don't even make sense, things that don't even matter, like a chile relleno, which is an amazing poblano pepper that is first charred and then it's battered and then you fry it. But you usually batter it in an egg batter. You whip up egg and then you basically just fry the egg. Why not just use aquafaba? We're already using the garbanzo beans for something else. Let's save that aquafaba. That's the juice, the liquid from a can of beans. Aqua, of course, meaning water, and faba meaning bean. And you whip that up, and you make this amazing batter, and it's going to be the same flavor. It doesn't really matter that it's not egg. It's actually amazing.